The NFL owners, as predicted, have approved expanded playoffs in EuroLeague, the National Football League, up to 14 playoff teams now with one extra wild card in each conference. You're going to give that a thumbs up or a thumbs down, Mr. Sharpe?
Skip, I get it. And I don't even really understand why the owners voted, because you knew they were going to basically approve this unanimously. Skip, the thing that made the NFL playoffs so unique and so elite is that 50% of your teams did not make the playoffs, like they do in basketball, like they do in hockey. Skip, the thing that makes something sacred is the scarcity of it. If you notice, we're dealing with this COVID-19. If you notice, people are buying up toilet paper and paper towels. Why? Because it's scarce. Things that there's abundance of, they're not wiping that up. Well, NFL playoff spots, there was scarcity. There were only 6 on one conference, 6 on the other. Basically, you had to play your way in. Now there's extra. Now, I understand why you like it, because it increases the opportunity of your Cowboys making the playoffs. That's why you love it. But, Skip, you know when there's only 6 spots that are available and there are 16 teams per conference, every game matters. Skip, teams didn't play well. Now there's only one bye week, so we got to play extra hard. Skip, teams were playing hard because they wanted those buys, the first and second seed, they wanted those buys. But they were also playing hard, Skip, because they knew there's only 6 spots. Skip, there's a reason. Skip, I love American-made cars, but they mass produce them. That's why they don't cost as much as a Ferrari. Now, the Ford GT, the 40, it cost as much as a Ferrari. Why? Because they didn't mass produce it, because there wasn't an abundance of them. Anything there's an abundance of, Skip, who wants that? Skip, what makes us unique as humans? We want what everybody can't have. It doesn't matter. That's what we want. In the playoffs, it was special. Eventually, you know what's going to happen, Skip. It's 7 now. Next CBA, it'll be 8. And eventually, it'll be basically you have 10 teams per conference going to the playoffs, because the owners can't help themselves. They're never going to pass up an opportunity to get an extra buck. Skip, I get it. Skip, the money's there. You got to try to find new revenue streams. But I just wish they hadn't have gone this route. There's other ways you can generate revenue. Maybe you have to take more games overseas. Maybe you have to come up with new digital services. But Skip, another playoff, and Skip, for the first time, I wanted to hear what some of the other, started reading about now teams are going to play harder. Skip, are you going to play harder because you know there are more more spots available? Or were you going to play harder when you knew there were fewer spots available? Let that sink in. Come on, Skip. That's the thing. I don't like it. I'm not going to sit here and say that I do like it. It's more NFL football, yada, yada, yada. No, I don't like it. I like the scarcity of it. I like teams knowing if we don't play our best, every game's matter. It's not like basketball, Skip. We got a spot sewn up and guys start resting. That's not how it is in the NFL. You have to play basically 14, 15 weeks. Who cares, Skip, if Lamar Jackson didn't play one game? Stop. It wasn't going to change anything anyway. Skip, if they had the number 1 seed sold up by week 17, you think they still not going to play their guys? Some teams are going to play their guys. Some teams are going to rest their guys. That extra playoff spot, I don't believe it's changing anything. Teams would have played harder knowing it was 6 as opposed to 7.
So, in a rarity here on Undisputed, you actually made a whole bunch of very good points about this. But after I slept on it, as much as I agree with many of your premises that you just made, I still barely like this new change, and I'll tell you why. Because I love the fact that there's now only 1 bye per conference. I love the fact that there's a supreme premium now put on winning the conference, because only 1 team on each side of the Super Bowl bracket will get a whole week off. And as you know from experience, the week off is flat out gold in the National Football League at that point in a season. It's a supreme advantage. And now, instead of two teams getting it and kind of watering that down, you've put the supreme premium on winning the conference and winning the bye week. So I like the fact that everybody's going to go hell-bent out to try to win the 1 week off that nobody else in the whole conference on your side of the bracket is going to get. So I really appreciate that. And again, I don't think that was the point of all this. It's actually just the sort of accidental result of all this. But I do love it, and yet I've always been with you. I didn't want to see my NFL playoffs watered down in any way, but I'll take this as an offset of the watering down to give this a slight edge to have only one bye week versus adding only one playoff team as a wild card. So Shannon, just for perspective, so everybody can grasp the overall context, that's your favorite word here on the show of this. Okay, so now 14 of 32 NFL teams will make the playoffs. That's 44%. So let's look at the NBA. We both love the NBA. We're missing the NBA dearly right here, right now. They have 16 playoff teams out of only 30 overall teams. Well, that's 53% versus the 44 in the NFL, 53 to 44. So that's still advantage NFL. And then we look at the NHL. We don't talk about the NHL much here on Undisputed, but they have 16 teams out of 31 total. So they're actually 52%, which is just 1% lower than the NBA, 53 to 52. But still, the NHL at 52 is quite a bit higher than the 44% of the NFL. So I don't know, like it's come one, come all into the playoffs in the NFL yet. It's not quite as bad as the NBA first and the NHL second. Now, if you want to talk Major League Baseball, you got me, because there's still only 10 out of 30 teams. Well, that's way down at 33% of their teams. So only 10 of 30 can make the playoffs. And remember, if you go back to only 2012 and before, they had only 8 teams out of 30 making the playoffs, which was only 27%. So the premium on making the playoffs belongs to baseball way over football and basketball and hockey. So just on perspective, but I do appreciate the fact that there's only one bye week now.
Well, the thing, Skip, my first year, the year I was drafted was the year they changed it. They instituted to 6 teams, because prior to that it was 5. And Skip, for me, is that well, then why even have a bye week? Why you need a bye week? NBA doesn't have a bye week. They got all their teams. It's 1 versus 8, yada, yada, yada. 2, 7, 3, 6, 4, 5. Baseball. So why do you need a bye week? What's the importance of the bye week? You want to get more teams in? Why you need a bye week? You play football, right?
Okay, but help me out. Is it not great incentive to win your conference and get a week off?
Well, Skip, sometimes I really think it's overrated. It all depends on how well you're playing at the time. Now, I've been the #1 seed twice. I've only advanced once. 96, we had the #1 seed, 13-3. We lost in the divisional. 98, we had the #1 seed. We are 14-2. We won it. But the other times that I won the Super Bowl, I went 3-0. We were wild cards. And think about this.
Okay.
Look at how did that work out for the Ravens last year?
Yeah. Well, remember, I criticized John Harbaugh right here on the show when he did it, but he didn't play his starters for that last week before the last week. Remember, like before the week off, he didn't play his starters. So it was effectively 3 weeks before they played a football game, and it was rust overcame rest. And they were just rusty, and they weren't ready for a hot Tennessee team that had played and played and played its way right into the playoffs and played hot. So I got it. But you know, and I know, more often than not. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, but why was Tennessee hot? Because every game was a playoff game for them. because they know there were only 6 spots. So now, in order for us to get that last spot, we've got to play our tails off from here out, or we're not going to make the playoffs. And that's what happened because of the scarcity of it. We only have 6. Now we got 7. Now teams like your Cowboys, 8-8. Guess where they get to be, Skip? The playoffs shouldn't be for mediocrity. First of all, I don't even like teams making, Skip. There are times, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Seattle Seahawks made the playoffs one year, Skip, at 8-7-1.
They did.
Come on, man. Come on.
Okay.
Now you get 8. You get 8-8. You're gonna be in the playoffs.
Okay. Well, that's not a given, but remember, there have been 9, 10-6 teams that did not make the playoffs, and that does not feel right to me. And under this new format, 8 of those 9 would have made the playoffs. Only one, it was a Tampa Bay team, I think, from whatever it was, 2010 maybe, that went 10-6 and still would not have made the playoffs in the new format. So,
Skip, you remember what the Patriots went 11-5 and didn't make it.
They did.
You remember when Tom Brady got hurt? They went 11-5 and didn't make the playoffs.
Okay, but there are going to be some aberrations. There are going to be some 8-8 teams that are going to make it, like we've had in some days before. And I just don't. I'm not losing my mind about it. I don't think it's going to ruin football that we now have a 7th seed on each side. I don't know. I think it's going to be okay, and I will value that there's only one bye week team. And maybe, like you said, maybe it'll hurt the bye week team. But again, I still think that's a big advantage for one team on each side to get a whole week off to rest and recover.
Well, Skip, I agree with you. I'm not losing any sleep. As a matter of fact, I had one of my best night's sleeps in a very long time. So I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, Skip.
Really?
But when I look at it, I just understand. Yeah, I did. But I understand, Skip, how special those playoffs might. Think about it. Only before they instituted this change, only 44% of the teams could make the playoffs. Boy, Skip, you better come out fighting, scratching, clawing by hook or crook, whatever you possibly can, because you know, and that's why, Skip, you got to get up to you try to get up to the great starts because you can't afford to give up so much ground. Yeah, Usain Bolt had great closing speed, but he couldn't be 10 yards behind at the start, or he wasn't going to catch up. Now you got, well, if I don't get the top seed, I could possibly get the 7th seed. Man, stop. No, make them play. I want you to play your way into the playoffs. That's how it's supposed to be.
Okay.
And now, Skip, now you're about to change all.
Okay. Yep. No, I got it. But I don't want to let this topic go before we make one big overview point here. Remember, it was up to the players to stop this. You used to be a player, but you no longer obviously have a vote on the CBA, as we just saw the players ratify the CBA. But I just read before the show today, Brian Bulaga, who's now obviously a Los Angeles Charger coming from the Green Bay Packers, and has always been very actively involved in CBA issues. And he pointed out something I did not know, that 22% of today's NFL players abstained from the CBA vote. That 22% didn't cast a vote, yes or no. 22%.
Right.
That's outrageously wrong. So remember, it barely passed by 90 votes. So you're telling me that a whole lot of people, a lot of players, rank and file players, just opted not to even cast a vote in the first place. Well, then don't come crying to me about they're adding extra games on us and they're going to add an extra regular season game in the next couple of years. Well, you gave them the right, and 22% of your constituency gave them the right without even casting a vote. So I know we're going to get a vocal minority crying about this and that, but now we've got 10 years of the same CBA. And as I always tell you, as a fan, that's fine by me because we got labor peace for 10 years. But I need you to respond to 22% of the players didn't even vote on this CBA.
Skip, it's very disappointing. I thought they would have learned from 2016 by not voting what happens, the ramifications that come along with not voting, abstaining, staying away. And plus the fact, Skip, they put together, the NFL had 456 pages. Skip, I can honestly say I don't believe I've read 456 pages of anything in my entire life, let alone give me a month, let alone give me 2 weeks to try to read over all that. Look, and you're right, Skip. This is what, Skip, when you have a few that says, okay, I'm going to vote, and I'm going to vote yay, and you have 22% that says, I'm not going to vote at all, yay or nay, well, you got to, whatever happens, good, bad, or indifferent, shut your mouth, because you had an opportunity to put a stop to it, and you didn't. Skip, see, and what they're looking at is that, and Skip, I follow politics a lot better, more than you do, is that what they're trying to say is that you're going to get this trickle-down effect. No, you're not. The 1%ers, see, the guys that make $600,000 will make $700,000. The guys that make $40 million will make $48, $50 million. So what happens is the 1%ers will get a deluge on top of their head. The guys that at the bottom will get one raindrop and says, well, I did feel a little water. No, you didn't. Stop this. But this is what we are now, Skip. There's nothing I saw where Eric Reed is trying to go back and have the CBA invalidated because he said they added some things to it after they had taken the vote. Now, Skip, I don't know anything about that. I mean, it could be true. It couldn't be true. Maybe he's trying to get it invalidated because some of the things that's in there, he's like, guys, you don't understand what you voted for. And guys that didn't vote, well, you have no choice. You know, you're at the mercy of whatever goes on. But Skip, this is, 22%, it shows that the seriousness was not given this document. It shows in 2016 the seriousness was not given. And so everybody else that did vote or maybe didn't vote for a particular side, you got to bear the consequences of the people that did vote and have their vote counted. Well, players, you didn't vote, so you got to bear the consequences of the percentage that did vote and they voted in favor of this. That's just the way, that's what happens, Skip, in a democracy. You get an opportunity to vote, you choose not to, whatever happens, happens.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.